Welcome back to Open Line. We were talking about a bill before the legislature, the Transgender Bathroom Bill. We have with us someone who is opposed to that bill, Marissa Richmond with Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition. We've asked the other side to come on. They got back to us. We hope to have them on at a later date. We've talked a great deal about this bill. What are some of the other bills that you are following? Obviously, Transgender Political Coalition. Well, I guess, first of all, what is that?
We're a statewide advocacy group. We were formed in 2003 to fight for equality and against discrimination, federal, state, and local levels, although we've also worked with some corporate and private industry, including Federal Express and Vanderbilt and their policies that are both trans-inclusive. These happen to be the two largest private employers in the state of Tennessee, and they both have transgender-inclusive policies, and we were glad to work with both of them on that.
Okay, and so now you're following several bills before the legislature, not just this one.
Oh, yeah. Well, this year seems to be a little wild. I think most people would agree. You guys have done a wonderful job. The entire Nashville media has done a wonderful job of covering everything that's happening on Capitol Hill. Of course, one that was supposed to be in a committee today was the counseling discrimination bill. It was up in House Health Committee, but it got stuck behind the budget on TennCare, and so that went well over an hour, and they just ran out of time. There's a bill that would actually legally define a person's gender. There is no current language in Tennessee Code telling you if you're a man or a woman, and so the state legislature, there is a bill introduced by Representative Sparks of Rutherford County and Senator Beavers of Wilson County that would essentially, the state would define your gender.
What do you think of that?
I think it's silly. I mean, we heard one of the callers talk about Jim Crow. When we had those laws of segregation, the state had to then pass laws that define black and white. So we're basically doing the same thing that we did 100 years ago. At that time, it was about race. Now it's about gender. And, you know, so that's a bad bill. One bill that we wrote that we're trying to pass is one that would permit gender changes on birth certificates. In this entire nation, Tennessee is the only state that has a law that actually bans gender changes, and that was passed in 1977. And no other state has seen the wisdom in following Tennessee's lead in 39 years. And so we've been trying for some time to get that bill repealed. And we have a bill written. We've been so focused on this bad bathroom bill that we have not spent the energy that we should be spending on that potentially good bill that would help. Last year, we even had a bill that would ban discrimination in the workplace, and Susan Lynn was one of those who voted no on it.
What is the atmosphere at the legislature? It's obviously a very Republican legislature. How do you feel about the bills that are out there, and how are you received when you bring forth legislation?
Well, the last time we had the birth certificate bill up, I testified in the subcommittee hearing, and Jeannie Richardson of Memphis was our lead sponsor, and some of them told her privately, you all did a wonderful job of defending your cause, but we're not allowed to vote for your bill. Now, one of the things we're seeing is being mirrored by the presidential election, this kind of split within the party, within the conservative movement. And so there's kind of a dance taking place that, you know, there are some who are moderate who realize this is bad public policy, potentially costly, but they're getting these threats from the very far right, you know, that if you don't support this, we will run a challenger against you, and the filing deadline is April 7th. So they're getting that sort of pressure, even though they know this is a bad bill.
And these bills garner that kind of pressure?
Correct.
In other words, you hear that with guns, so that's what's happening.
Yes.
You're hearing, you don't vote the right way, you get a challenger.
Right.
And so what do you think of that?
Well, we hope that they'll find the strength to say this is a bad bill and this should not go forward. This does not belong, this should not move to the full committee. It definitely does not belong on the floor of the House or Senate, and it should not ever reach the governor's desk. And we're hoping that Governor Haslam will come out and say, let's just stop this insanity right here, right now.
Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hi, Mr. Hall. It's me. I'm sorry I had to call in. I saw sweet Marissa sitting there. I hadn't seen Marissa probably in about About over 15 years out on Main Street. We had a good long conversation a few years back.
Well, I'm so glad you called in. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm looking at the state legislature, and I don't know how to phrase this without it coming off sounding common, but they can't seem to keep their hands off people's genitals, transgender or heterosexual or other, with all the micromanaging that they're trying to do on everything. Listen, I've seen the backlash to people who were transgenders decades ago and what they went through. And I'm a woman, and I go in the ladies' room, and if I've been doing a lot of work around the house, I'm not going to go to the ladies' room in public if I'm running errands and spiff up. And I've had women literally jerk, and they seem to have scared them or something, and I laugh. But I've also seen young boys, and I don't have a problem with young boys, born as boys, identifying as boys, 12 years old coming into the ladies' room. Because as a woman, you know that your threat is not somebody that's transgender or gay. Your threat to your child is somebody that's a pervert. And we all know what a pervert is, okay? So I don't have really a problem with it. I think Marissa's right. I think whatever little hamlet you're in, whatever little city you're in, you know the pulse of your community. You know what you're managing. And when years ago, we used to see little Jimmy run up and down the street with his halter top on, and it was a real religious community I was in, and nobody cared. And when he started having a lot of drag queens hang around him, nobody cared. I brought all of them in my house one day so they could use my phone. And when they left, my mother said, "Who are those women?" I thought, well, she thinks they're women. They're women. So good luck to you, Marissa. See you again. You're a sweetheart.
Thank you, Lucy.
All right, thank you, Lucy. Yeah, what do you think of all that?
I think her attitude is typical. I think a lot of good people across the state and across this nation are seeing through the ridiculousness of all of these bills. California, they put everything on the ballot. And the California equivalent of the Family Action Council has tried on 2 separate occasions to put it on the ballot there, and they couldn't get enough signatures. And they put everything on the ballot in California, and they couldn't get enough signatures to put bathroom language on the ballot. People recognize the idiocy of this. This is insane, and they just are not willing to support it. And what we have to get across, going back to the previous question from Ann, we have to make sure that the politicians are hearing from the people of Tennessee, not the special interests on from the extremes, to let them know that Tennesseans realize this is bad public policy, potentially costly, and that they should not pass this bill.
So because it was vetoed by a governor in South Dakota, would we be, if it were to pass, would we be the first state to enact this?
So far, of the dozen or so states, not one has actually made it a law. So whoever does do it would be the first. So again, Tennessee, we hope, does not achieve that distinction.
Achieve that, yes. All right. You mentioned some other bills. The counseling bill. What is that? I've heard that, but
that's
tell
the
us
bill
about
that would permit discrimination in counseling based on a person's religious point of view. Already, counselors are protected by the First Amendment, but the way this particular bill is written, it would actually gut the American Counseling Association's Code of Ethics. So the state legislature is going to step into a private professional licensing organization and get rid of their code of ethics. And all these professional organizations are creating codes of ethics for a specific reason. And for a legislature to tell any professional group, we're getting rid of your code of ethics, is ridiculous.
All right, well, let's go back to the phones here. Let's go to Philip. Hello, Philip.
Hey, good evening.
Hello.
The transgender, gay, lesbian, whatever, LGBT thing, y'all preach tolerance. Can I get a yes or no answer on that? We should all be tolerant of that?
Yes.
Okay, but yet y'all can't even tolerate yourselves the way that you were born. But we're supposed to tolerate you. That sounds just a little bit backwards to me. Can you please explain that?
Lots of people change their presentation. Some people go from eyeglasses to contacts. They change their hairstyle, hair color, braces on their teeth. People have nose jobs, and we don't discriminate against them. We don't deny them job opportunities or housing or access to restrooms. And so, people just decide, this is how I feel, this is how I want to go and interact in the world, and they should not face any sort of discrimination because of that. And that's all we're saying.
So that question, and Philip is gone now, but that it leads to, I think there are other people that I guess, how do you feel we are educated as a state? How do you feel word is getting out about where you stand and what transgender truly is? Where do you think we are in Tennessee?
Well, there's no formal education in schools, K through 12 schools. Some states, notably California, actually does require it. And we think that every state should require it to include that in their curriculum. We have women's history, African American history, Latino history, and we think that helping people understand the cause of the LGBT community and the discrimination and hate crimes that LGBT people face should be part of that education process. Certainly at the collegiate level, we do see some of that in some of these schools, some programs, not everywhere. But it's definitely not being taught at the K through 12 level. So Tennessee can do better in making people more aware of diversity and the challenges that those who are in these categories are facing as they're going through their day-to-day lives.
Okay, all right, we have to take a break. We'll come back. If you want to call, there's the number at the bottom of the screen, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.